Welcome to Revealed Abundance. Today we're going to be talking about the Good Samaritan.
Right, and we're going to talk about it in a little bit different sense than maybe we have in the past.
Yeah.
We're not going to talk about its historical context or anything. We're just going to kind of talk about personal revelation,
Right.
kind of thing. And we'll let Alicia explain that after I've read it.
Yeah.
So, the Good Samaritan, we've all heard the story, but I'm going to read it again anyway. It's in Luke chapter 10, verse 30. Now, there was a gentleman who was asking Jesus some questions on how to have salvation, how to inherit everlasting life, things like that. And so this is part of his explanation to him. Jesus, taking him up, replied, "A certain man was going from Jerusalem down to Jericho, and he fell among robbers, who stripped him of his clothes and belongings, and beat him and went their way, leaving him half dead as it happened. Now, by coincidence, a certain priest was going down along that road, and when he saw him, he passed by on the other side. A Levite, likewise, came down to the place and saw him and passed by on the other side. But a certain Samaritan, as he traveled along, came down to where he was, and when he saw him, he was moved with pity and sympathy. He went to him and dressed his wounds, pouring on them oil and wine. Then he set him on his own beast, and brought him to an inn, and took care of him. And the next day he took out 2 denarii, 2 days' wages, and gave them to the innkeeper, saying, 'Take care of him, and whatever more you spend, I myself will repay you when I return.' And then he asked a question, 'Which of these 3 men do you think proved himself a neighbor to him who fell among the robbers?'"
Yeah, this is definitely a personal revelation. It's not historical contextual, but, so I just felt like the Lord was talking to me about just about this text and about the Good Samaritan, and I felt like he had asked me a question. I felt like he said, "Alicia, what do you think the Good Samaritan was? Who do you think he was?" And so I began to give him the biblical answers. I said, well, God, he's a Samaritan, which meant that he was like despised by, the Jews, and he was like, okay, and he said, "That's nice. Would you like to know who I say he is?" And I was like, "Oh yes, who do you say that he is?" And I felt like the Lord was saying that the Good Samaritan was a saint, like how we should be saints. And I really felt like it was a picture of not just a natural picture, but also a picture spiritually, where when we see someone hurting, even prophetically or with discernment, then in their spirit or in their soul, then we can come alongside them and we can be the saint, or we can be the Good Samaritan that comes in and and helps that person. Mm-hmm. And something in here too is that it talks about the priest and the Levites and how and in my mind at that time it felt like sometimes our leadership in church, or maybe our pastors in church, may not see someone hurting because they're so busy trying to do all the church stuff. But you as the saint might see someone hurting, and how much that God needs the saints to stand up and do the work of service, to come in and to help that person heal. Mm-hmm. And sometimes God will give you insight in what that person might need. And so I just felt like that this story was a real strong prophetic, or even have like a spiritual meaning to it.
We talked about in our fivefold ministry videos, which we'll put a link in the description for you, that their job is to equip the saints for the work of service. Mm-hmm. And here we see that this is the work of service. Mm-hmm. This is what we're called to do.
Right.
And not that the pastors or anybody who walk by, somebody who's hurting, and not that they're a bad person. No. But sometimes they have a lot of stuff on their plate. They have a lot of things, a lot of moving parts they have to be aware of, and they don't have time to maybe build relationship with somebody who's deeply wounded, because sometimes you can't tell that from the outside. Sometimes it takes getting to know them, and that's why we have saints who are equipped so that they can build relationships with those people and
Right.
help heal those wounds.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so I just felt like God was like personally talking to me about this, and I love that he asked me the question about, who do you say the Samaritan is? And I was giving him all the biblical answers, and he was like, that's nice, honey. Let me tell you who I say he is. And I thought, well, what a perfect picture of who a saint is and how a saint acts. And thieves, the enemy does sometimes come in and hurt us and create wounds and stuff, and we need people who can see and discern spiritually and prophetically, and we need those people, and we need the saints to come in and love on people so that our body in Christ can just be healthy.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, thank you for watching and joining with us again today. We're excited to just share our personal revelations with you and historical contextual things and all that fun stuff. And so give us a like and a subscribe or share us, and we'll see you next time.